All right, everyone, get ready to dive deep. We're tackling Once Human, the game that's got everyone buzzing.
Yeah, it's been generating some serious hope.
We've got reviews stacked high, gameplay breakdowns, even some deep dives into the tech stuff. We're going in deep to see if it lives up to all the noise.
Is it fun?
One thing's for sure, just glancing at this material, the visuals are crazy good. I'm talking stunning from what I'm seeing. Snowy wastelands, massive volcanoes.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not just about sightseeing, right?
Not even close. Once Human is survival at its heart. We're talking scavenging, shelter, fighting off some seriously creepy creatures. But there's a twist. This world's got this thing called astrocenize.
Astrocenize. That sounds kind of ominous.
It is.
So what does this astrocenize stuff do?
Well, it affects pretty much everything. The environment, how enemies mutate, even what you can eat and drink.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. You're desperate for food, right? You find something. But it's tainted with this alien substance. Do you risk it? Knowing it could mess with your sanity.
Whoa, wait, there's a sanity mechanic too?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, now you have to tell me more about that.
Picture this. You are starving, you find some food that looks edible, but your gut is screaming at you, don't eat it. That's the kind of choice you're constantly facing in Once Human.
Intense.
The astrocenize adds this whole psychological layer to the survival.
Oh, wow.
Like if your sanity gets too low, your max health takes a hit.
Okay,
So it's
wait.
not just the elements, not just the enemies. You're battling your own mind to stay alive.
This is already sounding way more complex than just another zombie survival game.
Oh yeah, much more.
So how do you fight back in this world? Are we talking basic weapons or is there some cool tech involved?
Let's just say it goes way beyond clubs and stones. This game boasts over 100 weapon blueprints, 7 different categories, and you can customize them. Parts, perks, the whole deal.
So there's crafting?
Big time.
Okay, what kind of weapons are we talking? Give me some examples.
Okay, so if you like stealth, imagine a silent crossbow. Modified with a scope for those long-range takedowns, picking off enemies from the shadows. Or, if you're more of a warrior, how about a heavily modified axe? Imbued with astrocenize for that extra damage, maybe even glowing with this eerie light.
Whoa.
Possibilities are kind of endless.
That's insane. So you can really tailor your playstyle. You're not stuck with just one approach.
Exactly. And speaking of tailoring, let's talk base building.
Oh yeah, base building.
So you start with a territorial core, basically your home base.
Okay.
You can take it from a cramped little room to this sprawling fortress, workshops, gardens, even defensive walls.
Well, hold on. You can build an actual home in this world.
Pretty much.
I bet some players go all out with their designs.
Absolutely.
You can relocate your base too, right?
You got it. That adds a whole other layer of strategy to it.
Oh, for sure.
Like imagine you pack up your whole base, you move to a better spot, closer to resources, maybe further away from those dangerous astrocenize hotspots.
That's a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
Makes the world feel more dynamic and resource management way more intense.
Definitely.
We keep talking about surviving, but what's the point? Is there a main story here? What are we actually trying to do in this game?
There is a story, and it
Ignorant.
looks like it revolves around finding out
make
the
sure
truth about
of
this
that.
whole astrocenize situation, its origins, all of that.
Oh, okay, so it's kind of a mystery then.
Like a giant puzzle box. Every clue, encounter, choice you make,
Yeah,
it reveals a bit more.
I like it. So it's not just surviving, it's figuring out what's going on and maybe even reversing the effects of this stuff.
Yeah, and it seems your choices actually impact the narrative.
No way.
Mm.
So you're not just along for the ride, you're shaping the story.
Mm.
That's awesome.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
this is sounding better by the minute. But what about other people in this world? We can't forget about them. What's the deal with the factions in Once Human? Are they friendly, hostile, or a mix?
Seems like there are several, and each one has its own agenda.
Oh boy.
Some might be open to trading, maybe even helping you out, but others, not so much.
Uh-oh. So it's not just surviving the environment and creatures. You've got this whole web of social dynamics to navigate.
It's a big part of it. Your choices matter. They affect your relationships with these groups.
Oh, I bet there are some tough decisions to make.
Definitely. You might have to side with one faction over another, knowing it'll make enemies.
This is sounding really complex, but also super engaging. So it's not just you against the world. You can team up with people.
Absolutely. Once Human has a strong co-op element. Team up with friends, other players online, share resources, build bases together, take on those big bosses.
Oh, nice. I love co-op games.
It's a lot of fun.
I can imagine building an epic fortress with friends, then taking on these crazy creatures together.
That's what it's all about. It's an immersive experience, the environment, the factions, the astrocinize, everything plays a part.
Okay, I have to admit, I'm hooked.
Right.
We've barely scratched the surface, and I already want to play.
Same here.
But hold on, there's a lot more to cover. What else we got?
There's one thing that's been bugging me. What does this astrocinize actually look like?
Oh, yeah. Good point. We keep talking about it, but we haven't really visualized it.
I've been trying to, but the info is pretty vague. They just say it contaminates everything, permeates the world.
So they're leaving it up to our imaginations, huh?
Seems that way.
Okay, challenge accepted. If you had to describe it, what would you say?
That's a good one. I kind of picture it as like this iridescent shimmer in the air, almost invisible, but with a faint pulsing glow, like it's breathing.
Okay, yeah, I see it. Creepy.
And as it contaminates things, they start glowing with that same light, but darker, corrupted.
Ooh, that is creepy, like this invisible threat slowly corrupting everything.
Exactly.
But this brings up another question. If this stuff is contaminating everything, does that mean there's no safe place?
That's what I'm wondering. We know it affects the environment, creatures, even the player's sanity. It seems like the threat is everywhere.
All right.
Which makes surviving even more challenging.
It does. Makes you wonder if some of the factions have figured out a way to resist it.
Oh, for sure.
Like maybe they found shelters or developed tech to protect themselves.
That would make sense. Maybe some factions have adapted, even learned to use the astrocinize to their advantage.
Ooh, that's an interesting idea. A faction that's not just surviving, but thriving.
Imagine encountering them in the game.
That would be wild. Add a whole other layer to the social dynamics.
Absolutely. Raises questions about power and adaptation in this post-apocalyptic world. Who are the real survivors? The ones who resist or the ones who adapt?
Whoa, heavy stuff. I love it.
It's fascinating to think about.
This is what makes these deep dives so fun. We're not just figuring out the game, we're exploring the big questions it makes you think about. Humanity, survival, power.
You nailed it. And once human weaves those questions right into how you play.
So cool.
But before we get too philosophical, can we get back to those crazy weapons you mentioned?
Yes. I'm ready to hear more.
Let's do it. Let's dive into the arsenal of Once Human. Things are about to get wild.
I'm ready.
Okay, weapons. We've seen swords that get a damage boost from astrocinize, axes with blades that vibrate to slice through mutated flesh, even energy weapons that harness astrocinize power.
Whoa, hold on. Energy weapons that use astrocinize.
Yeah.
That sounds seriously dangerous, but also really cool.
Right. It's a wild mix.
With over 100 weapon blueprints to choose from, it must be tough to pick what to craft.
7 different weapon categories, each with a totally different combat style. If you like close combat, you might go for heavy weapons like hammers and axes.
Yeah, I can totally see myself charging into battle with a giant glowing axe, just tearing through those creatures.
Sounds epic.
But what about players who prefer to be more tactical? What kind of options do they have?
Once Human has them covered too. Imagine being up on a rooftop overlooking a swarm, picking them off one by one with a modified rifle. Or maybe you like setting traps, using the environment to your advantage.
Oh, clever.
The crafting system really lets you get creative.
So it's not just about the weapon itself, it's about adapting it to your playstyle and the situation. That's really cool.
Totally. And get this, you can salvage parts from enemies to modify your weapons.
Whoa, really? Like take down a tough boss, use its parts to make a super powerful weapon?
Exactly. Makes those tough fights even more rewarding.
That's an awesome idea. It's not just about the fighting, though, right? What about defending your base from those creatures?
Oh, yeah, you can fortify your base. Walls, turrets, traps, even defenses that run on astrocinize energy.
Whoa, that sounds intense.
Imagine a fence that zaps enemies, or mines that create mini astrocinize storms.
Those are some serious defenses, so you're not just building a home, you're creating a stronghold.
Exactly. And remember, you can relocate your base, so you're not tied down to one spot. You can move closer to resources or away from astrocinize hotspots.
Like a mobile fortress.
Right. That's got to be a sight to see.
I wonder if players will team up, create convoys, and protect each other as they move around.
That would be amazing, and it would make sense with all the dangers out there. Which brings us back to co-op.
Oh yeah, co-op. What kind of challenges can you tackle together?
It goes way beyond just building and defending. Imagine coordinating attacks on massive bosses with your friends, working together to take down something truly epic.
I'm picturing some crazy battles, everyone using their special weapons and skills to bring down a giant monster.
I'd love to see that.
But we keep talking about players working together. What about the factions? Can you join forces with them, or are they just there to trade with?
It's a little unclear, but it seems like there's potential for both cooperation and conflict.
Oh, interesting.
You might end up working with a faction towards a common goal, maybe even fighting alongside them against another faction.
That's intense.
Mm.
What if you get caught in the middle of a huge battle, forced to choose a side?
Oh man, tough choices.
Adds a whole layer of moral complexity to the game.
For sure. It makes you wonder how much you can trust these factions.
Right. Are they really your allies, or are they using you?
Exactly. And then there's the question of how far you're willing to go to achieve your goals.
Heavy stuff. But let's get back to the astrosanize for a minute. We know it affects the world and creatures, but what does it do to a player's sanity?
Well, the sources talk about a slow deterioration of your mind,
Yikes.
your vision blurring, strange whispers, your sense of reality warping. The longer you're exposed, the worse it gets.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
You have to protect your mind from this corruption, not just your body.
Exactly. So it's not just about charging in, it's about strategy. Do you risk going into highly contaminated areas for better loot, even if it messes with your sanity?
Oh, man. That's a tough one. I love those kinds of choices in survival games. It's not just about being good at fighting, it's about thinking things through.
And that's what makes Once Human so interesting.
Totally.
It makes you ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice to survive? And what am I willing to become?
Wow. Those are some big questions. It's like the game is holding up a mirror to you.
Exactly. And everyone's answer might be different. Some people might embrace the astrocenize and gain power, while others fight to stay human.
I'm seriously blown away by how much depth this game has.
Me too.
I feel like we barely scratched the surface.
There's so much more to discover. But before we move on, I'm curious, what kind of character do you see yourself playing in Once Human?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I think I'd be drawn to the stealthy type, the lone wolf, relying on agility and smarts to survive.
I like it. Sniping from the shadows.
Exactly. Using the environment to my advantage. What about you?
I think I'd be more of a jack of all trades. Someone who can adapt to anything.
Nice.
A little bit of everything. Combat, crafting, resourcefulness.
Sounds like we make a good team.
Yeah.
You could be the crafter building this awesome gear, and I'd be the scout.
Now you're talking. We'd be unstoppable.
Right. But there's one more thing we need to explore. The world itself.
Ah, yes.
We've talked about environments, but what about the lore, the history? What secrets are hidden in this wasteland?
So many questions. What led to the apocalypse? What remnants of the old world are left to discover?
Let's dive into the lore and history of Once Human and see what we can find. All right, so we've talked surviving this crazy astrocenize world, the bases, the weapons.
So much to cover.
But now let's talk about the world itself.
Yeah.
History, the lore of Once Human. Like, what even caused this whole apocalyptic event?
Well, the devs have built a really rich backstory for the game. It's full of mystery.
Oh, cool.
And from what we've been able to gather, it seems like this astrocenize wasn't always this destructive force.
Really?
Yeah, at first it was this huge discovery, clean energy, supposedly the solution to all our problems, that kind of thing.
Hold on. So this thing that's causing all these mutations and chaos,
Yeah.
it was once a good thing.
It seems that way, yeah. But then, well, something went wrong.
Uh-oh.
Big time. There are rumors of an experiment gone wrong, a containment breach.
Classic sci-fi, but I love it.
Right, it's a good setup. And now this astrocenize is everywhere, turning the world upside down.
So what's left of the old world? Anything to discover out there? Like bunkers, labs, anything like that?
Oh, yeah. The sources mention remnants of the old world scattered everywhere. Skyscrapers, research facilities, all decaying.
I'd love to explore those.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine finding old logs, recordings, figuring out what led to the outbreak.
That would be chilling.
Totally.
Hmm.
But with all this talk of a lost civilization, are there any friendly NPCs? Or is it just players and factions?
It seems like most of the social stuff focuses on those, yeah. But there are hints of these mysterious figures out in the world.
Ooh, like what?
It's not clear, but maybe they're survivors who've adapted to astrocenize somehow.
Maybe they're like evolved.
Could be. Maybe they offer guidance, or maybe they pose a whole new kind of threat.
That's creepy. I like it. Are they allies or enemies? Who
Yeah,
knows?
exactly. This is what I love about these deep dives. We're not just looking at the game, we're thinking about all the possibilities.
For sure. But speaking of possibilities, what about the end game? Is there a specific goal, or is it more about making your own story?
From what we can tell, there isn't one set ending. It's about the journey, making your own way in this world.
That's cool. So how do you win in Once Human?
Hmm.
Is it power, alliances, just staying alive?
It's up to you to decide. There's no scoreboard. It's about setting your own goals and reaching for them, whatever those goals might be.
I love that. It really puts the player in control.
Totally.
But with all this talk about surviving and goals, we can't forget the human element. How does this astrosunize affect how people treat each other?
That's a great question. It seems like it brings out the best and worst in people. Some folks band together, help each other out,
Makes sense.
but others turn on each other, get greedy, paranoid. It's like the astrosunize is a test of character.
Imagine having to make those choices in the game. Your decisions affect others, the entire world.
Heavy stuff.
Definitely. As we wrap up, what big questions are we still left with?
For me, it's the fate of the astrosunize. Is it stopped, reversed, or is this it? The new normal?
I don't know. Makes you think. Maybe the answer depends on the choices players make.
Maybe. It's less about finding the right answer and more about what it means to be human when everything's changed.
That's deep.
I think Once Human does a great job challenging players to think about these things.
So, if you're looking for a game that makes you think, that's more than just action and shooting, check out Once Human.
Absolutely. We just scratched the surface here. There's so much more to explore.
It's your story to write, your choices to make.
Until next time, everyone, keep exploring.